Hey there everyone, Con and I are here for a shoe review of the ASICS Superblast 2, and this is also day 84 of Project Houston 245. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and ding the bell for notifications, and share the video, help the channel grow. Right, Con? Superblast 2, unboxing and specs and features. Look at that colorway. That is fresh and clean. Alright, so I wasn't going to get a pair of the Superblast 2, but they've been pretty scarce and I had an opportunity to get one. And this is actually not my usual size, as you might have seen from the box. This is a men's size 9, however I did try it on briefly in the store and it fits perfectly. So this might be a shoe that one would size down about a half size in, or at least me. Yeah, it fit really well, and actually now it's a sample size so I can compare it with what ASICS claims its specifications to be. So specs and features. This is a max stack shoe. I forget exactly what the stack height is. It's over 40 millimeters in the heel, and it's an 8 millimeter drop. I will look up the stack height and put it right up here. This is Flight Foam Turbo Plus in the midsole, which is the same midsole foam that's in the ASICS Metaspeed Paris series. So it is PIBA based rather than the straight nylon based Flight Foam Turbo in the Superblast 1. Wow, look how dirty that version is. And then we have the Flight Foam Blast on the bottom, and a new outsole, which is ASICS Grip. It also looks like they have gotten rid of some of the rock catching features in the original one. These little gaps in the midsole on the original would pick up all kinds of little pebbles and stuff. So this one might not be catching as many little pebbles and stuff. Hopefully it's a better grip than the first one as well. The upper feels a little bit more textile and soft. The first version is just kind of plasticky. We do have a gusseted tongue. I've checked. It is a removable sock liner with some thickness to it. So I think the inside of the shoe is going to be very similar. The midsole is going to be different. From what I understand, it will just kind of feel broken in from the beginning and get that bouncy response, whereas this first one really needed to break in for me. Nice little pull tab here. Let's go ahead and weigh them. Right, the right shoe out of the box. 253 grams, that's pretty light. That is 8.9 ounces. And then the left shoe, 9 ounces, 256 grams. So it's pretty close. That is extremely light for a shoe with this kind of stack height. Alright, ASICS Superblast 2 fit. Again, this is a men's 9, not my usual men's 9.5, so it is a half size smaller than I usually get, but the fit is pretty bang on here. I have kind of an exactly thumb width worth of room there, especially since this upper kind of keeps its shape pretty well. In that men's 9, it conforms to my foot pretty well. I have a pillowed tongue here, which keeps the laces off of my feet, stays secure. The pull tab helps get it on. I think this men's 9 is going to fit pretty perfectly for me. So I don't have a large 9.5 sized foot. Usually 9.5 does really well for me. I bet a 9.5 would be fine in this shoe, but this might be something where you could consider sizing down a half size if you're between sizes and you're not finding the size that you usually get.
All right, we got ourselves a shoe off here. In the hot seat, we have the ASICS Superblast 2, and the shoes with which I will be testing it against are the ASICS Superblast 1, with quite a few miles on it, but it's well broken in, the Brooks Glycerin Max, the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4, the Mizuno Neo Vista, the Tier Valkyrie Speedworks, and the Adidas Adazero Prime X Strung original version. A lot of these contestants here are for various reasons, either because they are PIBA-based performance trainer like the Superblast is, or because they're the original version of the shoe, or because they're a similar price point. It might have some overlap in use case, or because they are a super stack performance trainer like the Prime X Strung here. Let's get to it. We'll start with the Superblast 1.
All right, Superblast 1 versus Superblast 2. Superficially, the shoes look very similar. I mean, other than the color, but they feel quite different. The Superblast 2 tends to pop off the pavement with a lot more energy than the Superblast 1. The Superblast 1 has a lot more miles on it, but I don't think that Flight Foam Blast dies out. The Flight Foam Blast Plus in the Superblast 2 is very apparent that it's the same foam as the race foam that's in the Metaspeed Edge Paris and Sky Paris. And it also feels like it might be a little bit higher stack height, and I know that's not true, but it might just be the sensation I'm getting, or it could be that the Flight Foam Blast on the bottom of the first version has been compressed down a little. Either way, the Superblast 2 has a much more energetic response without having to be broken in. All right, I have the Brooks Glycerin Max, and I have the ASICS Superblast 2. And I had better address the elephant in the room. In this case, the elephant is the Glycerin Max. It is a much heavier shoe. The shoe on my left foot weighs a full 2 ounces or 56 grams more than the shoe on my right foot, the ASICS Superblast 2. However, while I notice that weight difference side to side, it's not like I'm running with a club foot or anything. The Glycerin Max, I think, runs lighter than its weight specifications would have you think. It's no slouch. It's more comfortable than the ASICS Superblast 2. That's not to say the Superblast 2 is uncomfortable, but if the experience you want is comfort and lots of ample cushion underfoot, the Glycerin Max is great for that, for the same price. And it can still pick up the pace a little bit, although that wouldn't be my choice. The Superblast 2, if I wanted to do the same long run, but add in some more pace, it's ready to do that. In fact, it's chomping at the bit to do that, to go a little bit faster. But they both have a rocker that is differently shaped, but both very conducive to really setting you going forward. All right, now we have the ASICS Superblast 2 and the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. Shoes that are not too much alike, except for me, there's a lot of overlap in use case scenario. Both of them contain an all or mostly PIBA midsole with ASICS Flight Foam Turbo Plus and Saucony's Power Run PB. The Saucony, the Speed 4, has a nylon plate in there where the ASICS Superblast 2 has no plate. However, I feel like I get just as much support, maybe even more spring from the ASICS without having a plate, because it's just such a thick slab of super foam. Whereas I really feel the plate in the Speed 4 right now, and normally I wouldn't. Again, both of them have a lot of overlap. Good for long intervals and tempos, or marathon pace, or longer runs. I would say if my run is leaning more towards a longer run with marathon pace, ASICS Superblast 2. If I were doing a workout with long tempo intervals, Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. But both of them could do all of that spectrum pretty well. The Saucony's cheaper. The Superblast could probably last for longer runs. All right, Mizuno Neo Vista and ASICS Superblast 2. I am very much enjoying this particular comparison. My neighbors probably think I look like an idiot just running through town with two different shoes on my feet with this big old grin on my face. Both of these shoes are very different, but very enjoyable in very different ways. I feel kind of like Two-Face from the Batman comics, because the Neo Vista appeals to the very slow bounce, soft, cushy, but a little bit chaotic side of me, whereas the Superblast appeals to the rigid but bouncy and energetic side of me, even though they're both super stack trainers. So they're both fun, but I think I would just use them for different things. There would be a place in most people's arsenals for both of these shoes, but there wouldn't be a whole lot of overlap. They could both do a long run, but certainly a very different feel. And I think I knew that going in. All right, I have the Tier Valkyrie Speedworks here and the ASICS Superblast 2. And this comparison, in my mind, I thought was going to be very much like the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 and the Superblast 2. But the Valkyrie Speedworks, they just have a bit more pop to them than the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. And there's a little bit more into the forefoot too, because it's a 6mm drop, and there's actually a little more into the heel. So while it's not a super stack shoe like the ASICS, it's a little bit closer to that stack height, and you get more of that PIBA pop. So these shoes, I think, are a lot closer together in sensation, but the Speedworks has that slimmed down profile compared to the Superblast, where I would still take it for the faster runs. So if someone said that carbon fiber shoes were becoming illegal, but you could still wear a nylon plate or an unplated shoe and have a PIBA midsole, both of these would be very close to what my number one would be. Especially with the sales that Tier has been running regularly site-wide. If you're curious about a good max stack or close to max stack companion trainer and don't want to pay super shoe price, consider the Speedworks or the Superblast, but the Speedworks might save you some money. If you want that super stack, it won't compare with the Superblast 2, and the Superblast 2 does still have a lot of pop because there's a lot of foam. All right, last comparison, the Adidas Adizero Prime X Strung OG with the ASICS Superblast 2. Now, while I have this super stack shoe on my right foot, I'll speak to the notable absences. Hoka Skyward X, I got rid of it, just couldn't get it to open up. It was not the dream shoe I thought it was going to be. Same with the Mach X. Did not buy the Mach X2, although everyone says I should because of the improvements that were made. The Boston 12, I don't think would compete with the Superblast. That shoe is kind of dead to me. But we'll talk about these two. The 50mm of foam in the Prime X Strung, you certainly feel that over the mid 40s in the Superblast 2. It almost feels like on my right shoe I'm wearing a Spice Girls shoe. But the Light Strike Pro, just this big thick slab of it, almost has a slower response than the Flight Foam Turbo Plus in the Superblast 2, which has a tighter, poppier, snappier response. If I were gonna race either of these shoes in a marathon or even a half marathon, it would most definitely be the Superblast 2. I would not take the Prime X Strung for a race because I've taken it on long runs and you just kind of get lost in that cushioning. It's fun, it's a novelty shoe, but it's not really going to be a top performer for me. The Superblast 2 might be, as far as non-race day shoes.
Okay, we're gonna do a shoe talk for the ASICS Superblast 2, and I'm gonna try and keep this short. I wasn't so sure that I was gonna pick up this shoe and do a review of it because sometime last year or a year and a half ago when I did a review of the Superblast 1, I mean, I liked it well enough and all, but it didn't blow me away. Still hasn't really blown me away. I got a lot of use out of it, several hundred miles out of this shoe, but it just never really opened up for me. I still liked it better than something like the Hoka Skyward X. However, the Superblast 2 seemed like it was already broken in well out of the box, and I think the big difference is, if you look where my pinky finger is, that Flight Foam Turbo Plus, that midsole change is the big difference. And if you go back to the shoe off, this shoe just seems to pop off the pavement, whereas the first one just feels not quite as lively. Now, there are many who thought that the Superblast 1 was just kind of clunky, even though it's very lightweight for a shoe of its measurements. If you thought the Superblast 1 was clunky because of the shape of the shoe, then you're probably going to think the Superblast 2 is also clunky. But if you thought it was because of the midsole properties, I would suggest giving the line another try with the Superblast 2, because I think they've made all of the right changes, including you don't have any rock traps in this midsole, in the bottom of this midsole anymore like you had in the original version. So it pops off a lot better. It also makes it a little more versatile for me. The first shoe, I could pick up the pace in, I could do some long runs in, but it felt just very blah for like a recovery run or an easy run. Whereas this can handle those easy runs because you still get that bounciness from the foam and it's still enjoyable to run in, but it's good for picking up the pace as well. So if you're someone who likes to diversify your shoe lineup, let's say you have a Nova Blast or a Cumulus for your daily runs, your easy runs, and you have like a thick boy like a Glycerin Max for your recovery runs, or maybe you like to do your long runs in that because you want a little extra cushion, and then you have like a plated trainer like a Magic Speed 4 for your speed day shoe, your intervals or your tempo runs, and then maybe you have a carbon plated racer like one of the Meta Speed series shoes as your racer. If you like to diversify your lineup like that, then you wouldn't really need something like the Superblast 2, although the Superblast 2 could fit really anywhere in that lineup, or in most places in that lineup. However, alternatively, the Superblast 2 could be the lineup. If you wanted one shoe to fulfill all of the roles in your lineup and not have 4 or 5 pairs of shoes, then this shoe would be a good choice for that. Still probably want to shell out for a plated racer though. It handles all of those things well. It doesn't do everything perfectly, but it does everything well. Jack of all trades, master of none. Still something I feel like I would enjoy reaching for. However, if you're watching this channel and you're like me, you're probably not looking for just one shoe. But you wouldn't regret getting this shoe. I certainly think it's a better buy than the first one is. But yeah, go back to my shoe off if you want some more direct comparisons, especially with some of those more specialized shoes. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, share the video if you would, and I'll try and have another shoe review for you real soon. Thanks, guys.